Hello, my name is Rod Schaefer, and I created a Laravel 5.5 starter project. Uh, and I'm going to do a short video here showing briefly how to clone the project and just a short demonstration on a real world scenario where you may use this. So, what the project is I was aiming to make it quicker to scaffold out a new project that requires an access control list. So in other words, you want to manage users, roles, and permissions. So the project basically has everything in place and a basic admin panel to manage the users, roles, and permissions. And I accomplished this using the Speedy Laravel permission package, which is fairly well known for that. So, with that said, to clone the project and get it set up, like say on your local development server, you're going to develop a new site and you want to use this. So the first thing that you want to do is you obviously got to have Git on your system. I'm using CentOS 7, and I obviously have Git already set up on my system. So I would just copy this command right here, git clone, and just copy that and then open up a terminal window and change to the root folder that holds all of your web applications. Mine happens to be var www.html. So all my projects are in var www.html. So I'm going to want to run this git clone command in here. So from the root folder for my websites, run that. That'll pull the project down and put it into a folder named L55 starter. So it'll take a minute, and my internet's a little bit slow. So, okay, so now if I clear this screen out and do directory listing here, you will see that I have L55 starter right there. So now the beauty of this is you can rename it to whatever folder name you want. And I'm going to set it up for a new website that I'm doing. So I'm just going to move it real quick. So I'm going to move it from the L55 starter folder to myrtlerock.com. That's the new site I'm going to be working on. And then, of course, put in my sudo password. And if I clear this out again, do a directory listing, you'll see now I have it in myrtlerock.com. So now I'm going to change to the myrtlerock.com folder. Helps if I spell correctly. Didn't even put the rock in there. Okay, so if I go back to my GitHub page, it says the next step is to run composer install. So I'm going to copy that and run composer install. And that'll install Laravel framework and all the vendor requirements. So clear this out. And if I do directory listing, you'll see now we have the vendor folder. So that took care of that part. So now we want to change permissions on the Bootstrap and the storage directories to make them writable. So I'm just going to copy this first command right here. And you'll see the Bootstrap folder's there, and the storage folder is there, and they're both only read and executable for everyone. It needs to be read, write, and execute. So that's why we need to run this command. So we're going to do the Bootstrap folder first. put in my sudo password, and we're going to do the storage folder. And if I clear this out and do directory listing, you'll see now they are read write and executable for everyone. Same thing with the storage one. Okay, so that took care of that step. Now we need to set up a database and a user, and we need to copy the .environment.example file to a .environment file and enter the database connection info into the .environment config file. So I had already set up a database and a user. So at this point, what I want to do is I want to open up my integrated development environment, which is Phpstorm. So I'm going to open up Phpstorm. And I had already had this in here once before, so it's already in the list here. But if it wasn't in the list, let's get back out of that. And get rid of that. Okay, if it wasn't in the list, you just hit open here and you browse to the folder for the site that you're currently working on. It was myrtlerock.com for me, so I just highlight the folder and click OK, and that will set it up in Phpstorm for me. And you'll notice it's indexing files down on the right hand corner. You'll see it there, indexing files, and that's okay. It'll do that every now and then. Takes a minute, so we'll just let it finish. Phpstorm's pretty clunky. I got the latest, greatest version, and it's been hanging my system up a little bit. Okay, so if I expand the myrtlerock.com folder in the Projects Explorer, so you want to make sure you're in Project, and I come down here and I open up this environment.example file, you'll see it's pretty plain. There's not really anything in there, but it gets you started. So if you click on the root folder up here, mine happens to be Myrtle Rock, so I click on the root folder, I right click on it and I say a new file, and I want a .environment. And say OK, and you'll see now over here there's a .environment file. So what I want to do is in this environment example file, I want to select everything. So just edit, select all, come over here with your mouse pointer and right click on it and say copy, and then paste that into here. And then I'm going to modify this information with what I need to change it with. And I do have HTTPS set up, so mine's going to be HTTPS myrtlerock.com. It is American New York time zone. And I'm just going to pause the video for a minute while I put in my database information in here. And I'm also going to put in my mail trap username and password in down here. And the mail from address and mail from name, because I'm going to test out real quick the verification system. So I'm just going to put the video on pause for a minute, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so now I got the database information plugged into my .environment config file, and I also set up my mail trap information. So if you see here, it talks about the mail trap. If you never used mail trap before, it's very simple to use, and it's a way to test out your email while you're developing applications. And this will allow you to test the account sign up verification email that gets sent out, and also when a user changes their email address, it puts them back through that process again. Okay, so we also want to modify all the appropriate information in the config, site.php, and admin.php files. So if we look in config, we'll do the admin one first. And this is pretty self-explanatory information. There's pretty good notes in here, so just go down through and put in the correct info. So mine is myrtlerock.com for the domain name. And then the site title is going to be the same. So you can see this is pretty self-explanatory. The site owner's name. I'm just going to put my name in there. And then the address. So you would go through and modify all this information in here. Okay, I'm not going to finish it off, but like I said, it's pretty self-explanatory and it's not very much information. And this is used like when the emails go out to the users who register on your site, etc. And it's used throughout the site, like in the navigation bar, etc. So you're just going to want to take a few moments and go through here and put everything in that's required. Because one of the things that I do is when one of the things that I do when I do the privacy policy in terms of use is I'll use these environment variables. So like I'll do config, owner or address one if needed, and dynamically insert that content. So all you need to do is modify this configuration file and it updates it for however many sites you're doing. It's pretty convenient, actually. Working on, or going to be working on soon, a actual settings package so that you can hold all the settings in the database. But for now, I'm just using the config files. So, like I said, I'm not going to go through here and change everything. I mean, if I was using it in a real world scenario, I would. We'll make sure this stuff is right. I'm going to skip the address stuff for right now, but the email addresses and this user registration subject line for the email, all that stuff needs to be filled out, and you would really want to fill out your address and stuff in here as well, so that way you could use it throughout the site if you need to. Okay, so we made the changes in those two files now. So the next thing we want to do is we want to run phpArtisan key generate. And that is because you didn't have a .environment config file, you created it. And so that key is empty right now. And if you don't generate it, it's going to cause error messages. So just go ahead and run phpArtisan key generate. It takes a second, it makes the key, and it puts it into our .environment config file. So if you see up here, right here it is. So we got that part taken care of. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to migrate the database. Then we want to seed the database. So I'm going to copy this phpArtisan migrate. And I'm going to paste it into my terminal. I'm going to clear the screen out first so it's easier for you to follow along. And then I'm going to paste that in there. And that migrated all the tables. And so now we need to seed it with the data that we need in there. So I'm going to do phpArtisan db seed, copy that one, run that one, that seeds it. And that'll basically, it creates 3 roles. So it creates an admin role, it creates a user role, which is just a normal user account on your site that would register. And then an unverified role. So that means somebody signed up to your site, but they didn't verify their account yet. So they would be assigned the unverified role. Once they verify their account, then they lose the unverified role and they gain the user role. And so then if they were to change their email address, the reverse happens. They lose the user role and they are assigned the unverified role until they re-verify their email account again. Once they do that, then it switches back again. Okay, so we should have everything there that we need now. The default login, unless you change it in your database seeders. So, you could go into the database seeder here and go into the user table seeder, and you could change this to like your name if you wanted to. So it didn't say admin, and you could put the rest of this information in here as well and make it a different password, obviously, as well too. So if you want to do that, you can go ahead and do that. But the default is admin@domain.com for the email address, and the default password is secret. So after we did all that, we want to run npm install or yarn install, and I like using yarn because it's quicker. So I'm going to use yarn, and that will install our node dependencies. So let me clear this screen out, paste that into there, yarn install, and this will take a little bit, depending on how fast your internet connection and how fast your computer is. Okay, so that finished. So now we will have our node modules folder in here. Okay, so the next thing that we will want to do is, and actually this is the last thing that we need to do. I'm using Apache 2 web server, and so I have a .htaccess file that I want to make so that the routes get rewritten properly. And if you look in the public HTML folder, you'll notice I have an example one in there. And so I'm just going to go ahead and create a new .htaccess in there. So now I have them both. I have the example one and a new one. And I'm just going to open up this example one. I'm going to edit, select all, right click on it and copy it. And then I'm going to paste it into the .htaccess. And I'm going to change this from your domain to Myrtle Rock, because that was the domain name. Now what this does is it redirects everything to HTTPS. So if you're not using a secure certificate or a TLS certificate, then you're going to want to change this right here to just HTTP. Since I'm using SSL certificate, I'm leaving it on that, and it's going to redirect. If I just type in myrtlerock.com, it'll direct me to the secure page of that. So it redirects everything to the secure page. So I have that in place. We should be able to open up the my web browser here and go to Myrtle Rock, if I did everything correctly, Myrtle Rock. And that site should come up. And here's just the basic site. You'll see it looks pretty much the standard Laravel new application, other than the little bit of design changes that I did. And basically has the same information as I have on my GitHub page here. It explains how to install it, explains maybe a little bit more readable actually on here than on the GitHub. Then have a basic help section. Not sure why that didn't work, but that's not good. Log in. And it might have something to do with my htaccess file. That looks good. So let's try this. I'm not quite sure why that's not being found. That is very interesting. Every now and then, you have a little problem like this with Laravel, and so you gotta figure out what's going on. So it's always good to use the PHP artisan route list. Take a look at the routes, and we're just trying to go to the help menu and site help. Okay, there it finally came through. And they're finally logging and registers finally working. So that's weird. I've had funny things like that happen sometimes, and it's a lot of times it's the caching in Chrome. So you gotta hit Control Shift I to bring up web dev tools and hold down on the refresh thing and hit empty cache and hard reload. And then I found that sometimes it doesn't even work right away. Sometimes you gotta browse around a little bit and it'll fix everything. And see there, it fixed all them routes now. So okay, now if we can log in, we could just log into the regular site here. We could register a new user, could register, or I'm gonna say I want to go into the admin panel. So I just put the domain/admin at the end, and that will bring in the login, obviously. And so it was admin at domain.com, and the password is secret. And I'm going to click login, and that will bring you to the dashboard. So then you have a quick view, like you have this many total users. You can click this all users and view all the users. And I'm kind of glad this happened. It's because it's trying to write to the log file or to the cache data folder. And the way the Laravel Speedy permissions work is it caches things. And so it can't do it. And so the way that I'm going to fix it is I'm just going to change directory to storage, framework, and then cache. Put my screen on so it's a little easier for you to see. And then you'll see this data folder. That's what it's trying to write to. And it can't because it has my Linux ownership, and Apache web server needs ownership of it. So I'm just going to remove it. So if I remove it, I go back in here and I just try this again, that will fix everything. So with the basic admin panel, you can view all the users, you can view them, you can edit them, and you can delete the selected users. Now, you can't delete the admin user because you need that user in there. That's the main user that's going to set up all the roles and the permissions, etc. Okay, so then you have all users. You can create a new user, all roles. So here's all the roles. There's an admin role, a user role, an unverified role. And the user role and the unverified role are required for the account verification system to work correctly. But, that's a pretty normal role of just plain site user. And then unverified is if they didn't verify their email address yet. Okay, so I can hit edit here. I can go to edit, and this will list all the permissions that the user has. And if I go back to all roles, I can click on these permissions right here. It's assigned to the admin role. and it'll give me a listing, all permissions assigned to the admin role. And here's all the permissions that are assigned to the admin role, and they can't be deleted. So all the permissions that are in here, by default, there's 19 of them. They can't be deleted. Okay, so if we go to all permissions, then it shows you all the permissions and the roles. You can click on this to see what a role is assigned to. So the role index permission is assigned to the admin role. And then you can, if there was direct, like users that had direct permissions, they would show up over here. So if I look at that and I go back to all users and I say I want to edit this user, and you'll see here I can assign them direct permissions. Now, this happens to be the admin user, and we can't remove that role from them. But I mean, a user could have more than one role. I don't see why. Like if it was set up correctly, they really shouldn't need to. But they can have more than one role, and so it would list each role here and what permissions go with that role. And then down here, you can assign direct permissions to the user. So you could say, okay, well, let's just go through it here real quick. We're going to create a new user, and I'm going to bring up Mailtrap. I don't know if you ever used Mailtrap before, but it works really well when you're testing things as you're developing. So I'm just going to quickly log into my Mailtrap account, and this will catch all email that gets sent out by my web application as I'm developing. So I'm just going to make up a person and the password. And now I don't need to choose any roles or any permissions or anything. I can just go ahead and create them here, or I could choose the roles and permissions that I want to assign at this point too. But right now I'm not going to choose it. I'm going to choose it later. So I'm just going to go ahead and say create. And then it'll say user successfully created. And what that would do is that would send them an email to verify their account. So right here it is. And it looks like this. It'll say myrtlerock.com. Hello, thank you for joining myrtlerock.com. You're just one step away from making it official. Simply click the following link to verify your account. If you did not request this change, just ignore this request and delete this email. No further action is required from you. So if they click verify here, before I do that though, real quickly, I just want to show you, if I go back to the normal site and I hit and go into my user profile, you'll see right now that says verified for them right there. That's me, the admin user. But this new one right here, this new user, verified, no, they're not. It's false. So when they click this link, what it does is it verifies their email address as a good working email address. It'll give them a nice little message saying it's been verified. And then if I was to go back into the admin panel and refresh this screen, you will see now that they are verified. So that just gives you a quick little thing about the verification system. And the other thing is, if they went in and edited their email address here, that will obviously send them out the email again because they need to verify it again. So let's get rid of that email and add a Mailtrap. So that was just a quick show on Mailtrap. It's really good. Okay, so you can create a user, you can edit a user. And now I want to create a role because I'm going to do a real quick real world example. Let's say you have a blog and you write articles, and you work for a company that has a blog that writes articles. So you have more than one user that has to write these articles. So you want to set up a role as, like, say, an editor. So an editor can create new articles, they can edit articles, they can view articles, but they can't delete articles. Only an administrator could come back in later on and say, oh, yep, going to delete that article out. But the editor can't. So they can create articles, edit articles, and they can view articles. So we're going to create a role called editor. And we're not going to give it any permissions or anything yet because we didn't create the permissions yet. So for right now, we're just going to create the role and make a placeholder basically for it. So now you'll see right there we have the editor role has been created. There's zero users assigned to it and zero permissions. So now we want to go in and we want to make the permissions that we're going to want for that role. And so I'm going to say create permission, and we want to have they can article index, which means they can get a view an index of all the articles. So they're going to have that one. We're going to create another one. And this one's going to be article show, which means they can view an actual article. So not only can they see a listing of articles, all the articles, they can actually click on one of them and view the actual article. That's what article show is. So create that one. And then we'll go down here, create another permission. And we're going to do article. And we're going to do edit. And then we're going to do one more. We're going to create a permission called article create. So the only one they can't do is they can't destroy or delete an article. Okay, so now that we made the permissions, we haven't assigned them to the role yet. So we're going to go back to all roles, and we're going to go back over to this editor role right here, which is the last one. And we're going to edit, click on the edit button, and then we're going to choose those new permissions that we created. So we're going to do article index, article show, article edit, and article create, and we're going to save that. And then once we save it, the editor role will now have those permissions. So that means anywhere in your Blade templates or in your controllers, you can do things like can article index, can article show, can article edit. And it's fairly easy once you get everything set up. Okay, so now if we go back to all users here and we look at, well, we'll just hit view on the new user that we created, and you'll see they have permissions. No role permissions are assigned. And they have the role of user assigned to them. And that's because it creates the role when you set this, clone this project, it creates the role of user, but assigns no permissions at all to it. So that's going to be up to you to decide what permissions a user is going to have. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this person, and I'm going to change this. I'm going to delete, click on the X to delete the user role, and I'm going to choose the new editor role that we created. And I'm going to say save that. And it'll say the user was successfully updated. And now if I see here, they are assigned the role editor. And if I go in and view them now, it'll say, yep, they have the editor role. And here's the permissions they have as an editor: article index, article show, edit, and create. So you can see that this is pretty powerful. It doesn't look like much, but it's pretty powerful because it gets you a good solid start on one of the things required the most, and that is having the roles and permissions, etc. And it was always a bugger for me trying to figure everything out manually by hand. Now it's so easy with the admin panel. You can just go in, yep, here's the permissions I want to make, here's the role I want to make, and this is easily, you can build upon this. It's very basic, nothing really too fancy about it. So you can choose your design that you want to do. And same thing for the normal site. You can choose the design you want to do, what packages and libraries you want to use, etc. So I hope you enjoyed the video. That's pretty much the gist of it. And we will see you in my next video.